Hey, Doc, how long am I going to wear this stupid cast?
It's not a stupid cast. It has a purpose, okay? But the length of time you have to keep your limb immobilized varies and depends on the nature of the fracture.
Okay, so we're going to talk all about casts, why they're needed so long. Stick around to the end. We'll tell you a way that you can get in the water with your cast.
Wait. I can swim with my cast?
Yes, if you wait. Welcome to Talking with Docs and Dr. Brad Wiening.
And I'm Dr. Paul Zalza.
Okay, so we use casts all the time.
The reason that we would use a cast is if you have a fracture, so a broken bone.
Yep.
The bone.
Wait a second, a fracture, a crack, or a break?
Fracture, crack, break, they're all the same thing.
Okay.
Okay, pet peeve of the orthopedic surgeon, which is it a fracture or a break? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you have a broken bone or a fracture or a crack, the bone has to be immobilized so it can heal.
Right.
And the way we immobilize, and we're not going to do surgery to immobilize with an internal fixation device, is a cast.
I always tell people, imagine you're trying to glue two popsicle sticks together, and if you kept taking them apart, you know how eventually they don't stick? Our body is trying to glue those two pieces of bone together, and if there's lots of motion there, it can either delay the time to get healed or prevent it altogether.
I like that.
You like that one? You can use that one.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
Because
kids like it.
Everyone knows how to
Popsicle
glue
stick.
popsicle stick.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a cast on.
Right.
So it has to be immobilized.
Yep.
And it has to be immobilized for a certain period of time, depending on the fracture, your age, depending on your age, and,
Right.
and the nature of the injury. And generally it's 6 weeks.
Right, and I'd say the younger you are, the lower the time gets, and potentially
For
the older or sicker you are, or the type of a couple specific bones, maybe the longer it gets. Like sometimes we even cast people out for up to 3 months.
Whew, not often.
Not often, thankfully.
But there are certain bones in the body where the blood supply is so poor that healing can often be delayed.
Right.
And the classic one is a scaphoid.
Right.
Scaphoid, that little bone in your wrist at the base of your thumb there. That one doesn't have a good blood supply because it's mostly covered with cartilage. So it sometimes needs to be immobilized a little bit longer so it can heal, that lazy bone.
Right, so the short answer is about 6 weeks. So what's going to change this is if your fracture was totally undisplaced. So if the fracture is hard to see on x-ray, so the pieces are so close together, it's actually difficult to appreciate if you're really young. Thankfully, when we're young, we have a really thick skin on our bones called periosteum, and this is very metabolically active. So kids, like if you're 1 year old, you can see growth of bone in days. Like if you took an x-ray today and then an x-ray 3 days later, you can actually see new bone made in like 3 days.
Yeah, and so like the most common thing, a 10-year-old with a buckle fracture, how long are you casting those for? Or are you casting or going straight to a splint?
So usually I am. It depends on the kid too a little bit and the parents and what kind of activities they do. If the parents going, no, keep the cast on because my son is like a nut on his bike or whatever. So, but it could be 3 weeks, could be a couple weeks.
Yeah, right. And yeah, I'm the same. For a buckle fracture, it's going to be like 2 to 4 weeks at the most, and then some kind of splint if required after that. When you were a kid, you probably were one of those kids.
I never broke a bone though,
really?
or never went and got an x-ray that proved that I had a broken bone. And what I would say too is that sometimes we cast it really rigidly for the first little bit, and then you can transition to either a removable splint or say a walking boot if it's a lower extremity injury, or maybe we convert you from a cast that you can't walk on and then a cast that you can walk on once we're happy that there's a little bit healing and those bones haven't moved, with the whole goal being we're just trying to keep you out of the operating room and give you a bone that heals in a position that allows you to function normally.
But for our viewers right now, the most common reason you would have had a cast on is a wrist fracture. I would bet money on that.
I'd agree with that.
So, and that fracture, you probably had the cast on for 6 weeks. And that's the magic number.
Leave a comment if you've broken a bone and had to wear a cast, how long did you wear it, and what did you hate about it?
Yeah, right. And you probably hated the fact that it's hot, it's itchy.
Yes.
It starts to smell. A whole bunch of bad things can happen. You might have that cast changed.
Right.
But it's going to be a period of about 6 weeks for your wrist fracture, followed by some physiotherapy to get it going, possibly a splint after that.
Okay, so now I have a broken bone. It's the summer. I have a pool, or I have access to a pool. Is there any way that you can get me in the pool? And I'll do upper extremity or lower extremity. What can you do to help me get in the pool?
Okay, so the reason that most casts nowadays are fiberglass, okay? So they're waterproof.
Right.
Same stuff you'd use to fix your boat if you had a hole in it or something. However, it's the lining underneath, that swab, that cotton underneath that gets wet, stays wet, and then the skin can get emaciated under that. That's
and the reason we put that there is so that the fiberglass doesn't rub on your skin. It's like a barrier.
That would be uncomfortable. So once the swelling has settled, so not the first or second week, but later on, you can have a cast with a under surface made of Gore-Tex. So you can put a Gore-Tex type wrap on there that can dry quite easily.
Gore-Tex lining, fiberglass cast, sounds pretty fancy.
It's fancy, but you can swim with it.
Right. So there are potentially associated costs, so it can be expensive.
Yeah.
But yes, you can put it totally submerge it in the water or the shower or the bathtub for that matter.
But definitely don't take your cast. Don't, if you're wearing a cast right now, don't go in the water till you speak to your healthcare provider, the orthopedic technician,
Right.
or the surgeon, whoever put it on. Say, is this water safe? This
Right.
setup.
And when you're having the conversation about the waterproof cast, if they say no, there's a bunch of different potential reasons. So one, they might not be happy with the amount of immobilization they can get with a cast because it's hard to mold and to kind of tweak the alignment of the bone. So that might be one of the reasons, or the swelling. So it's not that they're just trying to wreck your summer. It's really all about your function.
Right. So in some circumstances, you may be a candidate to have a type of cast that you can swim with. Most of the time, probably not, but there are some situations where you can.
How about lower extremity fractures?
Okay, so in this case, you're often in a cast boot.
Yes.
Okay, now it's very rare to put an ankle in a cast these days.
Pretty uncommon.
Much more common when you put you in a cast boot.
Yeah. What do you tell them for swimming in the boot? They say, Doc, can I just go in the pool? And,
no, because that boot has a lot of foam and other things that retain water.
Yeah.
But the question you get is, can I take this off and go into the pool?
Yeah.
And that entirely depends on what the fracture is, the nature of the fracture, how stable it is, where it is, what bone it's in. So for example, a fifth metatarsal fracture, after a couple of weeks, I'll be like, sure, you can take it off and wade in the pool.
Yeah.
But an ankle fracture with any kind of displacement or anything like that, then I would probably say no.
Guess what? I have a solution that maybe you don't know about. You know what I tell them? Buy a second boot. And I've done this lots of times. So it's at an added cost. Then you have one boot that they're going on vacation, they're going to Puerto Vallarta or something. I'm like, have one water boot, because you can't dry it. You can't put it in the dryer, it'll break down.
No.
So you have to let it air dry. So you let one boot get wet and it will get destroyed.
Yeah.
Then you're wearing it in the water though.
Okay.
And then you go into your dry boot when you're out of the water.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's expensive, but if you're a trip of a lifetime or something like that, you're going to Bora Bora and you want to be in a boot, wear the boot in the water.
Bora Bora boot scenario.
There you go, now you know.
That's a good one. I've never seen that. I usually say for my types of fractures, you can take it off.
Yeah.
Depending on the type of fracture. If it's one I'm worried about, don't take it off.
So generally speaking, your cast can be on 4 to 6 weeks. It's because your orthopedic surgeon cares about you that they're doing this. They're not doing it to wreck your life.
We don't like
but now you know. And if you like this video, please like it.
Sometimes you won't have a cast. Some fractures, like you have a broken elbow.
Right.
We're not going to cast your elbow because we don't want you to get super stiff.
Sure. Sometimes a shoulder, you get a sling or a clavicle.
Can't cast that. So there are certain broken bones where you don't get a cast on.
Yeah.
However, your bone is still broken, so you got to act like you have a cast on.
Right. It's just too hard to immobilize.
So I interrupted your
outro
there.
That's okay. Now you know. And if you like this video, please like it, subscribe to our channel.
And remember, you are in charge of your own health, even though you may not be in charge of how long you got to wear a cast.
See you next time.